Learning as a schus for Shlema, for Ilan Chaya Baserach, from the top of Lamed Gimel Amid Aleph. We had just to clarify, we had just discussed Ovid Kechav Mahalach Latarfus, which was the case of the Mishnah, which are Goyim who were going, or Yidden as well, who were going on their way to a pilgrimage. They were going to Mecca, or an equivalent Avodas Kechavim. I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's Avodah Zara, if that's idol worship specifically. But they were going to a place specifically to be Ovid Avodah Zara. Now I'm going to talk about a slightly different case. Tan Rabban, Ovid Kechav Mahalach Yerid. They're going to a market. And this wasn't an innocent market. This is a market which we had discussed in the first parak. They were going to a market where a portion, some of the Rishonim explain it, that a portion of the proceeds were going to Avodah Zara. But certainly the theme of this market was Avodah Zara, and an upstanding Jew should not find himself there. He's going to the market. Bein b'halicha, bein b'chazara mutter. The guy, whether he's going on his way toward the marketplace, whether he's going back, and you do business with him, the proceeds of that business is mutter. We don't say it's proceeds that came from the purchase or sale of Avodah Zara. Yisrael ha'halach yirid, but a Yisrael who is going to this market, ba'alicha mutter, on his way there it's mutter, b'chazara also, but on the way back it's us. So obviously the question is going to be why is the chazara of the yid also? Maishna Yisrael de b'chazara aser. Why is it on the way back that we say what the money that the Yid made from his business while he was there? We say that it's aser. The army. Avodas kechavim zavin. The me avodas kechavim ikabadei. So if you're going to go do business with this Yid, and you're going to sell him something, you're going to get his money that he got for selling an Avodah Zara at the Yerid. He was selling Getchkas at the Yerid, and therefore the money that was produced by that transaction is in the possession of this Shvacha Yid who's coming back from the Yerid. And if you go do business with him, you're going to get this tainted money that was acquired in return for selling an Avodah Zara. So tomorrow, what are you saying? Why is this only applied to a Yid on his way back out of the Yerid? Why don't we say if you meet a Ovid Kechavim, he also had in his possession money that was acquired by selling Ovid Kechavim? Ella, Ovid Kechavim, meaning Glima Zavin Chamrik Zavin. A guy, we say, when he went to the Yerid, he is just going with all his friends to Yerid, and he's just doing regular business. Even though it's a Avodah Zara themed business, 99% of what goes on there is just regular transactions. It's, the way I say, I think of it like we used to have that big street fair on Avenue M. I don't know what it was named, but it could have been done by some Catholic church. It was named the St. Joe's Street Fair. No one's selling Avodah Zara, but Yisrael Nami Neme Glimo Zavin Chamer Zavin. So why don't we say the same thing? The Yid also, even though it had we shouldn't talk about exactly what the Avodah Zara theme was, but why don't we say he was also just doing a innocent transaction? So Gemara, no. Like Rashi says, if that's what he was doing, if the Yid wanted to just buy regular stuff, he would have gotten it on Amazon. He would have done it by a regular Jewish street fair or a regular market. Our markets are much more efficient. You get a better price. Everything's better by a Jewish market. So if he's going to the Gaisha market, obviously it's for nefarious purposes. He's going because he wants to sell to them Avodah Zara. Amr B'Shua ben Levi. Okay, I'm sorry, we skipped. V'habayin mutarin. So this is from the Mishnah. Again, we just diverted for a minute to talk about a Yerid, but now we're going back to the Mishnah. And the Mishnah was talking about Tarfus, right? Ahochel letarfus, also losses velocity moyen. This is the Gemara quoted this earlier. Someone who's going to a pilgrimage, he's going to the actual Avoda Zara. You can't do business with them. V'haboyin mutar. But if they're on the way back, like we said in the beginning of the Gemara, on the way back, we don't assume that on the way there they're gonna, when they get to the Avodah Zarah, they're gonna thank their Lord for giving them this business opportunity. But on the way back, they're not gonna go back to where they came from to thank them. So once they're leaving, you don't have to worry about doing business with the Ovdei Avodas Kecham. Amr Bishua ben Levi. This is only if you meet an individual who left the fair, who left the pilgrimage, they're on the way back from Mecca. But if you find a large group, asurim. A large group, there's the madness of crowds, it's a mob, they're all together. There's going to be one from who's going to say, we really should go back. It was so nice, let's go back. So we're concerned that they are going to attack. The group is sticking together because they plan to go back. They're just taking a leave for a couple of days. So therefore, you can't do business with them because we're scared they'll go to the Avodas Kechavim and praise their Avodas Kechavim for if you give them a business opportunity now. Okay. Now we're getting to a very technical piece of Gemara, which is about Noidas Ha'ov Kechavim Kankein. We had said in the Mishnah again, Machlokes, the Mishnah said, Noidas ha'ovdei kechavim kankein, the flasks and the bottles of ovdei kechavim, the yayin shel Yisrael konus bahen, and it has wine of Yidden inside of it. A Yid borrowed a ovdei Avodah Zarah's bottle or flask, and he put his own wine into that bottle. Asur and Visur and Isser Hana. Rameh says it's also to drink that wine that was put into the guy's bottle. We assume that some of the taste of the wine remained in the bottle, and it got into the Jew's wine, and therefore it's going to be also to drink, and it's going to have a full status of Yayin Nesach. They say no, it's only a tam of Yayin. There's no actual wine. And therefore, you can't drink it, but it is no Isser Hana. Zok Tigama. Tan Rabban. Noides ha'ovdei kechavim. We're going to talk about the very specifics of what type of kalim we're talking about. So these are noides, which I believe are, what did it say over there? Leather bottles. I'm sorry, no, these are not leather. These are earthenware containers and bottles. So noides ha'ovdei kechavim gerudin chadoshin mutarim. If they're gerudin,
no, Rashi says nudis is shalar.
Oh, it's shel ar.
And kankanim
over here.
cheres.
Noides shel ar, kankanim shel cheres. Kol ha'mishnah pirashi l'mayla. All right, so the noides is shel ar and the kankanim is shel cheres. It's just strange to me because we're going to discuss about putting zephes. It sounds bizarre to me to put pitch. Zephes is like tar. You put it on the inside of a leather flask. It's hard to see how that would work. I would think you need something solid. The practicalities of this are very far from us. In any case, the Brisa says you have these flasks of leather and that you gerudin, if they're unpitched, that means they don't have the zephes in them. Zephes is more likely to absorb the tam of the yayin nesach and chadashim, and if they're new. In addition, they're new, meaning relatively new. They haven't been used that many times. Obviously, it's not brand new. Brand new, we say very much, or it could be even by this. It's brand new. There's a lot of rishonim about what exactly chadashim, how and yishanim means. But chadashim means it hasn't been used at least very often. Mutarin, because it hasn't yet absorbed. Those two factors make it that it hasn't absorbed the tam. Yishenim, but if the guy has had it for a while and he's been using it to store his yayin nesach in it, umizufafin, or if it has a pitch interior, pitch is very absorbent, it takes a lot of time in it, asurim, then it's awesome. It doesn't, the Brisa, the Gemara doesn't really address if we're talking about Reb Meir or the Chachamim. That's not really the point. Whatever the Isser is, whether it's just the Isser of drinking or if it's the Isser of Hana as well, the question is it going into the wine that you put into this kelim? Ovid Kechavim Rivavon. If Ovid Kechavim, if he put this tar, this zephes, on the inside of the kli, the ivdan, and he made the leather complete. He finished tanning the leather. The nasan l'soicha yain, and then the Ovid Kechav put wine into the kli. Yisrael Amid al Gavav, but a Yisrael is watching him. Ein chayshish. Then we don't have to worry about the yain that the Ovid Kechav put inside. In fact, the Gemara, the obvious question: what does it help to have hashkafa? This is like sort of the guyish. If you ever talk to a guy and ask them what they think kosher means, they think it means that a rabbi is blessing it. But we know that's not the case. A rabbi blessing a guy putting yayin nesach into something is not going to help. What does it help to have a Yisrael Emin al Gava of watching him do the thing that he shouldn't do? Amar Papa Hachikama. Ovid Kechavim Rivivam ve'Ivdan. Ovid Kechavim put it in the pitch and he prepared the cleave. Yisrael noisem l'soichen yain, and the yid put into it wine. Yisrael acha oimid al gabav ve'enech chayshish. And then so the yid is putting in Jewish wine, not yayin nesach. And then another yid is watching him. Then we don't have to worry about yayin nesach. Now we have the other problem. What we said, what does it help to have what I become watching? Now we're saying, again, what does it help? But meaning, what does it help? Why is it necessary? If he's putting in kosher wine, non-yayin nesach wine, what does you need a yid to watch him? So no. Dilma alagraf tirde menasech v'lavadaite, because they're working together, right? They would put I guess they put the wine in. This is all part of the process. They would make the bottle, and then the yid would put in the wine. If you don't have a mashgiach on top of the whole procedure, the yid over here is putting the wine. He's part of the process of. He's one of the workers in the factory. You need on top of that, you need a mashgiach to make sure that, like, if he takes a break, the yid from doing his wine filling job, that the guy doesn't go and put in some yayin nesach when he's not watching. So you have to have someone Omer al Gabav to make sure wine is not put into it. I should say, we should really see the Rashi. This wine that's being put in is not being put in to fill the bottle. We're talking about it's part of the bottle preparation process. It was like seasoning the bottle by putting in a little bit of wine into the pitch, into the zephes. So that's what we're concerned about, that zephes, that wine, shouldn't be yayin nesach. So that's why you have to have a second yid watching over the process. Zvid said, no, there's no two yidin with one yid watching. When we said a yidin is watching, and it's talking about where the yid puts in yayin and we're not chayshes. We're talking about the guy is putting in the yayin netzach, but we said if the yid is washing, it's going to be mutter. What does it help that the yid is washing? It's yayin netzach. We say it's this this yayin that's being put in to to season the pitch. It becomes it's not like when you fill a bottle with wine that the tam goes into it. Since it's part of you're putting it into hot pitch, which is then going to cool off. It's good that tam, there's not going to be any tam yayin coming out of it. It's going to solidify and become part of the kli, and it's never going to be heard from again. So you just want to have that, make sure that that's the only wine that goes in, that the Ovid Kechav doesn't continue to put yayin after the pitch is seasoned. that wine disappears. It gets absorbed into the zephyrs. Just like when you put water into cement, when it dries up, there's no more water. Or I would say, like when people put wine into their cooking, they always assure you that there's not going to be any alcohol. It just dissipates. It gets absorbed into the moisture of the zephes. So therefore, you just need a yid ayman al gabav to make sure that that's the only wine that goes in and not anymore. Amra papi shmami no medur zvid. You can see from Rizvid, Hi Ovid Gechavim, the Shad Chamra Lebei Milchi, the Yisrael, a Ovid Gechavim who puts wine in a salt container of Yisrael. Why I'm not doing this? Why they're doing this? I don't know. What the point of this is. But he shari. It's also going to be mutter because we say the yayin gets absorbed into the salt. I'm not sure if it's to make wine. I don't know why you do it. Maybe to make the salt, to improve the salt in some way. But the point is, it just gets absorbed and it's never heard from again. It's not going to be a moist mixture and therefore dries up. And you're left just with salt that's somehow improved by the wine. But the wine, there's no tam of the yayin in the salt, just like there's no tam of the yayin in the zephes that wasn't being put there to remain for the future. To be, it wasn't intended to be a nice and town. Maskef Ravashi, mi dami. How could you compare that? Hasam ka'azal li'ibud. Hachalei ka'azal li'ibud. He said over there when you're putting it into pitch. Now the way I understand this, and it's not. Rash doesn't say exactly like that. Hachalei ka'azal li'ibud. Rash says shenasim tam melech la'olam ve'enim misyavish. It puts the tam into the melech la'olam ve'enim misyavish. I think what it means is that you're going to eat the salt eventually. Mashiach in the pitch, you're never going to eat. So when you put whatever tam it gives, and the salt will remain there. It doesn't go away. Mashiach in the pitch is a thing separate from the food. So you could say that it disappears into the pitch and it never goes out. But the salt is going to be eaten. Where's that tam actually going to? Okay. Adi ta'aya. Baradi, who was a Arab merchant, Anas Hanu Ziki min Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. He grabbed kalim from Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. Rama b'hu chamra, and this guy put in it his wine. Badrinu nele, and then when he got tired of it, when he finished using them, he returned the empty bottles to Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. Also Shal Bey Midrash. He went and asked in the base of Medrash, "What's the din with my Ziki?" My kalim. Amalei Rav Yirmiyah kach hayra Rabami. This is what Rabami said. Halacha lamaisa. What do? Memalan mayim shloisha yomim u'ma'aron. You put 3 days water into these bottles, and then you pour them out, and that will take out the tam of the yayin nesach. Amar Rava tzarich la'aron me'es la'es. You have to. It doesn't mean that you put it in for 72 hours straight. It means every 24 hours, you pour out the water and pour in another batch of water. You do that 3 times to 24 hours each. That takes out whatever plita of mine. So there is, even though the Mishnah had said it's usher, there is a takana, there's a way to remove that taint. Sav mina hanimili didan. He wanted to say, however, that's only in the case that we just gave, where they asked him where the guy had taken a Jewish vessel and used it for a period of time, then returned it. So the original absorption of this kli was kosher wine, and most of the absorption was already there. And now there's just a little bit of yayin nesach, potentially yayin nesach absorption. So on that, we say that doing this strategy, soaking it for 3 24-hour periods, gets it out. Abel did who? But if there was a guy who had a kli that he had been using from when it was crafted, from when it was new, So it only absorbed, it fully absorbed yayin nesach, loy. Then we're not going to say that it can be used with this takana of soaking it for 72 hours. He also Rav and Amar Shimon and Lakish. Echad shalanu ba'echad shalahem. He said, no, there's no difference whether it's ours or whether it's theirs. You can do this. You can get it out by soaking it. So Rav Achabrei Rava Kamei Ravashi Lameimar Hani Mili Noidis. That is only the leather kalim. Aval kankanim loy. Kankanim, which are made of cheres, and Rashi says they absorb more. You're not going to be able to remove the taste by soaking them. So according to the Shita, this would not be very useful for us. We don't really use any leather kalim, but on the other hand, we don't use shacharis either, really. As we're going to see, it's very complicated. We're going to be talking about the end of the next Amud about glazed charis, which I think is more common for us, that we have glazed porcelain. Very rare to use something that's pure charis. And glass is a whole different question. Amle Ravashi, loishna noidus, loishna kankanim. He says it makes no difference which one it is. I think that they're both going to be awesome. Tana Rabban, kankanim shel oivdei kechavim, the bottles of oivdei kechavim, chadashim, gerudim, mutarim, yishenim, muzaf, and asurim. This is the same as we had said before. We had said before, I think, noides. Now we're talking about kankanim, which are made out of, before we were talking about the leather, now we're talking about the cheres. But it's the same din, generally the same din, at least at the beginning. If they're new, they haven't been used many times, and grudim, they don't have pitch in them, then they're mutter, yishenim zufafin. But if they've been used many times and they're covered with pitch, then they're also, because it was by Leia the tam of the yayin nesach. Ovid kechav noisem l'seichen yayin. If the ovid kechav put into it wine, so it absorbed that taste, Yisrael noisem l'seichen mayim. The yid can put water into it to take out the taste of the yayin. Ovid kechav noisem l'seichen yayin. Yisrael noisem l'seichen tzir or murius. Another way, rather than doing water for 72 hours, another option is he could put into a tzir, which is like a fish soup, or murius is like I think an oil made out of fish guts. So these are both sharp things. So you could use them, and they could immediately sort of burn out the taste of the yayin nesach. Let's see the last Rashi. Immediately. It burns out the taste of the yayin. It goes faster than the water. Do we say, is this an option of burning it out using these sharp fish substances, is that l'chatchila, or is just b'di'evid? If you don't have 72 hours, you can do it, or if you have to do it, can you use it? Tashma tanruzid barayish halakech kachan min avdikacham chadashim l'soichan yain yishenim noisim l'soichan tzir or murius l'chatchila. He says if they're I don't know why he's saying what's the difference between chadashim and yishenim. Before we didn't make that chalak, did we? Yeah. If they're new, meaning they haven't had so much wine put in them, you do yayin. If they're older, then you do tzir murius l'chatchila, but we say l'chatchila. Do they say anything there about why it says why we stick in yishenim and l'chatchila? Yishenim and chadashim. Okay, there's nothing over here.
That would be similar to what we said earlier, right before in the price. So if it's brand new, it's mutter.
We're not saying it's mutter. You say it's a nice musayich and mayim. So it still needs something.
Oh, I thought it means you could put in wine right away.
You could, I'm sorry, right, you're right. Nice Musech is that you can't put wine in it because wine takes out the taste of the. Is that what it means? That wine
But
takes out the taste of the yain?
you mean, I thought it means that you can just use it right away.
Adoshim noisel musaychan yain. Yisham noisel lechan. Oh, that means noisel musaychan yain. You could use it because it doesn't absorb any taste. But if they're old, noisel lechan sir muris lechatchila. I guess you could also put in mayim as well, but then you'll have to wait. But it's lechatchila. The point is, you could do lechatchila. I thought it was saying first the eitzah. Yeah, but it didn't say anything about putting in wine, right? Noisel lechan yain, and you're not choishes. If they're older,
That's chadashim.
right? It's chadashim, right? I was just, it doesn't mention at all the option of mayin. So I confused myself. What happened if instead of using the water or the murius or the tzir, instead he put it back into the furnace and burnt it out? If the tzir, if you use a burning substance, it gets it out. It's not a kal v'chomer that fire itself will do so. You get it to be white hot. Once it burns off, it causes the pitch to fall off the kli, so there's nothing left, and there's nothing left of the tam. It doesn't have to mamish burn off the pitch. As long as it loosens the pitch, that means it got hot enough to burn away any yayin nesach. Even though it didn't detach and fall off. Kinsa. Pligi ba Ravacha Ravina. What is kinsa? Kinsa. If he took burning pieces of wood and put it into the kli, he didn't put it into a furnace, but instead he put it into the kli. So it's a machlekes. The halach is like the Mandam who says that just putting burning wood into the kli is not enough. It has to be put into a furnace and get white hot temperatures. What is it then? We said about putting in mayim, and we talked about seer. Is shecher also go when you put shecher? Will that sort of nullify the tam that would come from the yayin? Right. The whole problem that we're discussing is that you have a kli of oivik chacham. You're not getting actual yayin nesach, but you're getting a tam of yayin nesach. But shecher has its own tam. It's its own alcoholic tam. So maybe the tam that would get out of a kli into shecher is not relevant because the shechers, it's sort of over the obviously you have a lot more of the shecher, and that alcoholic tam overrides the tam of the chamra, of the yayin. Nachman Yehuda asri, Rava shari. Nachman Yehuda say it's aser, and Rava says it's mutter. Ravina shari.
I'm sorry. The question: are you allowed to drink that beer?
Right. If you're allowed to drink the beer that was put into a kli that had absorbed yayin nesach, do we say beer counteracts the tam of the beer counteracts the tam of the yayin? Again, we're not talking about actual yayin going into the yayin nesach going into it. If it was actual yayin nesach, there'd be none. All these discussions would be irrelevant. It would certainly be us. We're talking about a tam, and that's why we had a machlekes between Rameir and the Chachamim in the Mishnah about whether it's only a iser achila and not a iser hana like the Chacham hold. Rameir says also iser hana, but it's clearly not the same thing as actual yayin nesach. If it was actual yayin nesach, it would be us altogether. So Ravina Sharle Rav Chia Breder of Yitzchak Lemir Mebe Shechra. He allowed him to put beer into a kli that had absorbed yayin nesach by a guy. Azul Roma Bechamra. But because he allowed him to put in beer, he also put wine in. Even so, he didn't say, oh, look, you see what the problems that come up. If you're allowed to put beer, then people also put wine. And wine, obviously, is not going to counteract, it's not going to cancel the time of the Yayin Nesach. He says, listen, it happened. It doesn't mean that it's likely to happen again. And I still hold with my heter that you could put beer in a kli that absorbed Yayin Nesach. He had these kalim of Rashi says tzefiye bakar made out of soya, the waste, animal waste. They used to make kalim like that. Malinu maya, he filled them with water, and they absorbed the tam of yayin, and he wanted to get rid of that tam, so he filled them with water. And anachinu b'shimsha, and he said like an extra chumrah, he put it out in the sun, so it not only got water in it, but also got heated up from the sun. Paku, and the kalim burst because if you put water in a kli and then you put it in the sun, it heats it up and it expands and then it caused the thing to burst. Amli Rababa asatinu alach isura de la'olam. He said because of your chumrah, you caused it to be asat to ever. It doesn't mean literally. He was saying you ruined it. You ruined your kli because you makabel on yourself. This chumrah that was unnecessary, you ruined the kli, and it was foolish to do so. Amar the Amarabanan mamlinu maya. All the Rabbanan told you to do was to fill it with water. Did they tell you to put it in the sun? No, and you decided to do it. Don't be such a chacham. Amar Yisnu Amar Avami. Klei neter ein lei tahira. Klei neter does not have a taira oilamis. It's very absorbent. There's a different type of kli, a certain type of kli, and it doesn't ever. You can't fill it with water or put it back into the kivshin. My kli neter. What is a kli neter? Kli mechapirish shel trip. It's a kli that's made. All these kalim, these earthenware kalim, are made with some kind of clay. There's a kind of clay that comes from a quarry where Rashi says they dig for alum, I guess aluminum, what we make aluminum from. But this is a very absorbent earth, so therefore it can't be kasher. The Beit Parzak Rufila Onashani Kumim Pumbedisa. The house of Parzak Rufila stole bottles or kubi containers from Yidden and Pumbedisa. Ramabu Chamra, they put their wine in it. Adrinu Nalayu, and then they returned it. I don't know why this is a common thing for them to do, to take the bottles and fill it with wine. We had two cases about this. As Shalul Rav Yehuda, they went to ask Rav Yehuda what to do with it. He says these kubi, these are not. They were like let's say beer bottles or something like that, or a cup. So it's not something that they would put in for a long time, and they wouldn't heat anything up in it. So therefore, since it only has for a very short period of time, you can just rinse it out and use it. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of details. We had a lot of things. We said Yishenim and Chadoshim, and now we're saying that some types of things, if they only put it in momentarily, you can just rinse it out. So you have to know, there's only Rishonim talk about exactly what the parameters of each one of these shiurim are. Like what is considered that it's a momentary use, what's considered old, that was used for a long time, what's considered chadashim, that was only used a few times. Amar Ravina, Hani chatzvi shechimi, the Aramoy, these red kalim of the Aramoyim, even the lebali tuva, since they are very non-absorbent, meshachshechin b'mayim umutar, they could also be rinsed out. These are things that are made in a certain way that they're very non-absorbent. Amar Papi, Hani pasvosa de bei michsi, these other kalim, clay charis, earthenware kalim of the bei michsi, even the loy bali tuba, mashashon b'mayim mutam, they also can be rinsed out. Kasi, what about a cup? Rashi says, so nothing is ever put in them for storage, which is a whole different situation than a bottle, which is used for, you put for some period of time. I would assume these things that we had mentioned before, I would think are used. We had said the hani kubi b'pumpadisa. It wasn't a cup. We said ein machnisa kiyam. You could rinse it out. So, but these kasi, I think those were made of less absorbent materials. This is a kasi, is a cheres that really is absorbent. So what's the din? Rav Asi asar, Rav Ashi shari. Rav Asi said it's asar, Rav Ashi said it's mutter. Ishasabu ba'ovid kechavim pam rishon kol yamalei pligid asar. Everyone would agree that if you take an earthenware kli and the first time it's used by the ovid kechavim, so it's very, very absorbent at the beginning. Everyone would agree that it's asar. Ki pligi pam sheni. If it was first used by a yid and then the second time by a guy, even though it was only a kli, used as a cup, so it was only used for a short period of time. But since it's so new, still relatively new, it absorbs, and it's a very absorbent material or charas. Even the second time, it's still asa. Ki pligi b'pam gimel. Halachas of pam rishon v'sheni asa gimel mutter. Halachas is like the second shita that it's only mutter if the guy uses a cup the third time and he puts his yain nesach, that we say it no longer absorbs. Okay, we're going to stop over here.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.